homework today, like we did last time, I'm going to have you check it on your laptops. I just posted it a moment ago. So grab your laptop and start checking the answers. Look closely at the answers. I tried to highlight the section, or no, I didn't highlight. Well, I sorted it. I did it in red, yeah. To highlight the section I want you to focus on. Check it carefully.
There was some party station.
There wasn't?
Yeah.
They're probably all freaking out because the bells Alright, so if you would guys, please log in, start checking homework. If you didn't have time to do homework or whatever the excuse for not having homework, work on it now. If you sit there and do nothing for 10 minutes, it's a waste of your time. Okay, so use the time wisely, work on the homework, work on your orange study guide, work on test corrections, work on studying for something. Make good use of this time as I come around, okay? 5, 6. Oh, I haven't figured. All right, fine. So, looking at homework, are there ones that you guys have questions on that you want to talk through? Yeah, Daniel, number 4. Yeah. Is there a particular part of number 4? Like, was it the tick marks? Was it the bookends? Just the whole process, how it goes. Yeah. All right, so taking a look at number 4, the equation is cosine 2x. Okay, so cosine 2x. If I think about the DAB process, yeah, the dividing line, the amplitude, the bookend, what's my dividing line? 0. Good. There is no D value. So your dividing line is going to be cutting through the middle, right at 0. What's my A, my amplitude? 1. Good. So that means the graph's going to go 1 above the dividing line and 1 below the dividing line. And the B, the bookends, always start your bookends between 0 and 2 pi. And last class, for those of you that were out, sorry, you were out, right? What we learned last time is how to do the bookends changing. Like if there's a B or a C, changing the graph, changing the period, changing the phase shift, moving it left and right, that's going to change our bookends. So what did I put inside this inequality? The 2x. Good. You're going to take whatever's inside the cosine, and that goes inside the equation, or the inequality. Cool? All right. So now, I want to take this inequality and I want to solve for x. How many sides did we say there are in this inequality? 3. There's like a left side, a middle, and a right side. Yeah? What am I going to do to get x by itself? Divide that 2. I want to get x by itself. I have to divide this 2, make it go away. Divide it to everybody. What's 0 divided by any other number? What's 2 pi divided by 2? How do we feel on that math? The 0 to pi part. Okay? All right, so what does that mean? That means on my graph that I'm going to draw a cosine starting at 0 and ending at pi. I'm going to put my 5 points for cosine, look like this. I'm going to put those 5 points in that little box, in that little rectangle. Cool? So, let's see, I guess I still need my tick marks, don't I? How many tick marks are there total? 5. And we know we're starting at 0, ending at pi. So look at your picture. A couple of you guys said to me that you're struggling to find the tick marks. For me, I find it visually, right in the middle would be like here. Do we agree? Yeah? And this one's probably not that hard. We're very close to 0. But if it was some like crazy numbers, remember that your x-axis counts by what? What's the scale of the x-axis?
1/4
1/4 pi. So this is 1/4. This would be 2/4. What is 2/4 reduced to?
1/2.
1/2 pi. There's your middle term, or your middle tick mark. Cool? Cool. Right in the middle between 0 and a half a pi would be this guy. And what did we say that one was? Pi over 4, he's just 1/4. And between the half pi and a whole pi, this would be the middle. That's 1, 2, 3 fourths. You see how we find our tick marks? Yeah. All right. Then to graph it, where does cosine start? Top left corner, top left corner. Unless it had a reflection. Did it have a reflection? No. Your next tick mark, your next point should go right on the dividing line, and it's going to line up with that pi over 4. So pi over 4 is going to be on the dividing line. Next point's at the bottom, so at pi over 2, you're at the bottom of the box, back to the dividing line, back to the top. That make better sense? Do you feel like you could repeat that pattern and give me a second period? Do the vocab, domain range, period. Yeah. Are there other questions from homework? Other things you guys want to look at? Good question. Always, 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 for a phase shift or a vertical shift, include that word up or down or left or right. Up or down or left or right. Yeah? Okay. Always include that word. Good question. Because I want to make sure you know that a negative pi over 4 is right pi or left pi or whatever way it is. Cool? Anything else? All right. Are you feeling okay with these graphs? Yeah? I was impressed by the number of you that did your homework and that looked like you were on track. Like, obviously, I didn't look at every single problem on your papers, but in general, your graphs looked like they were on the right track. Cool. So hopefully you're checking the details and let me know if you need help. Yeah? I am after school today if you want to come in. Maybe you could help get ready for the quiz. Next class. What? Oh my goodness. The quiz, next class, it is 5 problems. It'll take you about 30 minutes. It's going to be 4 graphs and then one thing like we're doing today. Well, so 4 graphs and one thing like we're doing today. It's all non-calculator, 30 minutes. If you're worried, come after school today. Cool beans? All right. Did everyone get the notes page for today? I'm the worst. Everyone got notes? You have an extra color? Yeah? All right, let's get started then. All right, so what we're going to be doing today is the reverse of what we've been doing so far. So far I've been saying, here's an equation, let's graph it. By the end of class today, you're going to be able to look at a graph and come up with his equation. Cool? All right. So, we start with a little bit of basics. Okay. You want to know the form or where A, B, C, and D go in a sine or a cosine equation. You want to highlight those if you need to. You do have a choice when you write the equations. You can leave the B factored out so you can see your C. That's usually the way I start my equation. I leave it so that the B is factored out. But you can also choose to distribute that B and multiply it into the equation and kind of simplify it. And that's fine too if you want to do that. Okay? But I usually start with the factored out. All right. Couple things of vocabulary. What is amplitude? Which transformation does the amplitude? A. Good. And amplitude, remember, is always what kind of a number?
Positive.
Positive. Perfect. Amplitude is always positive, so it's the absolute value of it. Cool. What is the formula for the period?
2 pi over b.
Perfect. The period formula is 2 pi over b. is the period in the equation? Like when we look at the A's, B's, C's, D's transformation stuff, right? Looking at the sign equation. Does it say period is, oh, that letter, that number in the equation? No. What the equation has is the B value, and we use that to find the period, right? Today we're going to go in reverse. I'm going to tell you the period, or we're going to look at the graph and figure out its period. And then we're going to use the period to find the B. Okay? But it's the same equation that we keep using. Okay? PS, Jeepers Creepers, what does that PS stand for? Anyone know what I'm trying to say there? Phase shift. Yeah, what was the phase shift? What did that really mean? Was it a fancy way of saying your graph moves left and right? Exactly right. So phase shift is just that left or right movement. Okay. So how did we find the phase shift? Remember that when you have your B factored out, the phase shift is just that C, that right or left movement right inside the parentheses. Okay. The C is your phase shift if B is factored out. And that's an important if B is factored out. So if B is factored out, the phase shift is just that x minus C or x plus C. Which way does minus go? Right? You can put that down if you need to. What if it's plus?
Left.
Well, so that symbol could change depending on whether it's left or right. It's not always going to be a minus. Cool beans? Alright. So keep these vocabulary words and these formulas in mind. Our first problem says, I want you to write an equation that satisfies all this information. I want it to be a cosine function that has an amplitude of 1/2. It reflects across the x-axis. It has a period of 4 pi, and it has a phase shift left pi over 2. A lot of information. We're trying to come up with the equation. For me, I like to set up an equation with a whole bunch of like blanks for my A's, B's, C's, and D's. I'm going to be like, something for A goes in front of the cosine. Yeah, and then in my parentheses, which letters go inside my parentheses? C and B, right? The B. And I like to have the B factored out. So I do an extra set of parentheses. It's my C. I'm going to factor out the B to C, my C. And which number or which transformation goes at the end? Give you guys a second to get caught up. So we're going to plug in, we're going to read the equation, or read the problem and find out, get some clues. What could A be? What could B be? What is C? Yeah? Why don't you guys start off? Help your neighbors. See if you can figure out what A might be.
Yes.
Let's do some easy stuff first. Does anybody see something that's easy in the equation? Like A or D stuff, my favorites?
A.
A. What do you see for A?
-1/2.
Negative 1/2. Why was it negative?
It's as a reflection across the x-axis.
Awesome. And why was it 1/2?
Amplitude.
Because it says the amplitude is 1/2. Beautiful. All right. What about a D? Does it have a vertical shift up and down? No. So you can erase that. You can put a +0. You can drop it off. Cool. I wouldn't just leave it blank because that might make me think, oh, they didn't fill that in and they don't know what goes there. Cool. So at least put a 0 in or drop it off. All right. Up next, the B and the C. The C is easy peasy. The C, it tells you what your phase shift is. What is my phase shift? Pi over 2 to the left, yes? This is my C value. You're going to plug it right into the equation as long as you remember to have this extra set of parentheses to factor out B to C or C. You're going to plug that straight in. Would it be plus or minus pi over 2? Plus. Because left is plus. Right into the equation, you're almost done. How do you feel? All right. Last thing that's left is the period part, the B part. Now this tells us that the period is 4 pi. Does that mean I put 4 pi in for the B value? No. I do not just take the period and plug it into the equation. What I need to do instead is use the period formula to figure out what the B value would be. So what is the period formula?
2 pi over
2 pi over B. Nice. I'm going to still with me. 2 pi over B. And what you're going to plug in here, that 4 pi, think about what the 4 pi is. The 4 pi, is that the B value or is that the period value? It's the period. So we're going to take that 4 pi and plug it in over here. 4 pi goes in over there. You see how I just plugged it in on that side? Nine? Everyone okay? Yeah? All right. Well, then talk to me about how you would solve this equation, especially because it's got a B in the denominator. It's a little tricky to solve. Any thoughts? Say again? You absolutely can cross multiply. Throw that 4 pi over 1 and cross multiply. I'll give you guys a moment to work that out. You're solving for B. Trying to solve for B. Get B by itself by cross multiplying it. So as I've cross multiplied, does everyone agree with my yellow work so far? Yeah? All right, if I want to get B by itself, what do I need to get rid of? The what?
4 pi.
The 4 and the pi, do we agree? How do I get rid of both of those at the same time? Divide by 4 pi. You're going to divide 4 pi on both sides all at once. That's going to get your B by itself. Does that make sense? All right. So what's going to happen when we divide by 4 pi? What happens to those pi's? They cancel out. Yeah. And what is 2 divided by 4? Careful. 1/2. Yeah, the smaller number's on top. Do we agree it's 1/2? Yeah. There's your B value. Shoop, shoop. Plug that in to our equation. Cool. before we go any further, is this making sense? How are we feeling? Okay. Take a step back and think. I feel like I say that in all of these problems, like we're graphing all last class. I tried to say at the end of each graph problem, step back and look. Does it make sense? Does all the stuff that you wrote down match up together? Right? So think here. If this had been the equation that I gave you and asked you to graph, and it had a 1/2 for b, a 1/2 for b, think about those transformations. Is that going to be a horizontal stretch or a horizontal compression?
Horizontal stretch.
Stretch by how much? By 2. So the period, instead of being a normal 2 pi, is going to get stretched as double to be 4 pi. Wait, is that what the problem said, that the period is 4 pi? Do you see how it connects? Take those like 10 seconds and think, did that make sense? Okay, if you had accidentally done the work and gotten a 2 for your b, let's say I had gotten a 2 here. Stop and think. If the b value had been a 2, is that a horizontal stretch or compression?
Compression.
Compression by how much?
1/2.
1/2. A period of 2 pi would have compressed and gotten skinnier by 1/2. What would that 2 pi period compress to be? Just a pi. Is that what the problem says? No, you know you made a mistake. Does that make sense? Using your brain. It works really well because it's strong brain in there. Cool. Your b is 1/2. Yay, math? All right. You may leave your answer like this, or if you want, you can distribute that 1/2 and multiply it to both guys inside those orange parentheses. I've got a lot of writing up here. What would it look like inside the parentheses if I distributed the 1/2? Try it with your partner. Take that 1/2 and multiply it to each guy. If your neighbor's out today, find somebody to chat with.
Pi over 4.
Cool. Think about multiplying fractions. Multiply the tops together, multiply the bottoms together. I was Survey says, what do we think is going to be inside those parentheses? What's 1/2 times x? 1/2 x. X over 2 is also okay. What's 1/2 times a pi over 2? Pi over 4. Multiply the tops together is pi, multiply the bottoms together is 4. Stays the plus sign. And then you can drop off your plus 0 if you want. Okay, math? All right. So here we wrote the equation of the cosine function by looking at the words, by looking at a description of it. Okay? What we're going to do next, a little bit more challenging, is look at a graph. And we're going to have to analyze that graph and break it down and figure out what is the phase shift? What is the period? Does that make sense? We have to look at it ourselves. Okay? Now, in these graphs, on your homework, on your quiz, on your test, I'm going to tell you whether I want you to write a sine or a cosine function. Because technically, you could see a sine equation, or you might look at it and see a cosine equation, depending on which piece of the graph you look at. You see what I see? Okay. So I'm always going to tell you which one to look for. And I think on your notes what I did was I actually colored and tried to highlight and say this is the chunk I want you to look at. Okay. So for this problem, we're going to look for a sine. And we're going to look for a sine curve. And there are a bunch of sine curves on this graph. There is this one. True. But there's also this sine curve. Does anybody see any others?
Those are reflected in this stuff.
A reflected one. Do you see this one? Right? There's so many possibilities. The world is your oyster here, right? It's a little overwhelming. Okay? We're going to choose which one to look at together. Okay? And that's why on your homework and on your quiz and on your test, I'm going to highlight the chunk I want you to look at. Okay? So the part of the graph I want us to look at, I'm going to keep it simple. I want you to go on this sign chunk right here. So go ahead and trace over or highlight, maybe use a color, that chunk of the graph. And I knew to look for a sign, and I just picked the easiest sign to make our lives simple. Okay. All right, so with your partner, can you guys discuss these, let me highlight. I want you to talk about, is there a reflection, the amplitude, and the dividing line? Can you guys discuss those three things? Amplitude, dividing line, is there a reflection? It might be easiest to try to find the dividing line first. Think about the dividing line like splitting the graph through the middle. We're about to do all right, so looking for that dividing line, what cuts right through the middle of the graph? Anybody? Where does it cut through? It cuts right through at 0, yes. You need to be able to look at that graph and see that the middle of it crosses through at 0. Where is that going to show up in my A, B, C, D part of my equation? It's your D value. Cool, it's going to be your D value. Dividing line at 0. Once you see that dividing line in the middle, you should also then be able to see the amplitude, the vertical stretch and compression, how far up and down it goes. Absolutely don't need to do that. No. Cool. If you did it, it's not wrong. Cool. What I don't want you to do is like leave a blank and you're like, I don't know what Z is. That makes me nervous. Cool. So looking at your picture, what do you guys think the A would be, the amplitude? 2. It looks like it's up 2 and down 2 from that dividing line. Do you see it? Yeah. That's your A value. How do I know if there's a reflection? Yeah. Does this one go negative first or positive first?
Positive first.
Positive. So is there a reflection? No. So we know that the A is going to be a positive 2. We know the dividing line D is going to be a 0. Up next is the B and the C. You with me? Okay. Let's do the B first because we actually did one of those earlier. I need you to be able to look at the graph and figure out the period. Do you just look at, oh, the graph ends at 2 pi, that's the period? No, you want to look at the part that you highlighted and look at how wide it is. From start to finish, from bookend to bookend, how far is it? So what are the bookends in this picture? 0, 2, pi. These would be my bookends. What could we do last class to find our period if we knew the bookends?
You can subtract them.
Subtract them, yeah. Sorry, sure you guys do, sorry. Yeah, you subtract them. No, it's okay. We subtract those bookends to find the period, yeah? Do we do small minus big? No, big minus small. So the period, wait for it, big minus small, the period is pi. So we know the period's going to be a pi. Does that make sense? Yeah. Does that pi just go into the equation? Is that the b value? No. What do I need to use? What formula is there that I can use?
2 pi over b.
2 pi over b. You can do this in this box here if you have enough space. We're going to use that period to find our b value. What am I going to plug into that formula?
Pi.
Pi. Good. The pi is going to plug in, and I always plug my pi in for what the period is. It goes in on the p side. Cross multiply to solve that out. What are we getting for the b value? Anybody? 2. Absolutely right. The b is 2. And a lot of you are probably at the point where you can just like think and realize that, right? Like you're like, oh, the period's pi. That shrunk it by a half. That b must have been a 2, right? Because b is backwards, right? If you can just see it and just realize it, go with it. Cool, but make sure you're thinking it through and that it makes sense. Cool. All right, so we've got our b value. The last thing we need is our phase shift, is our c. Yeah? How do we know in a picture what the phase shift is? It's a big question. How do we know by looking at the picture where the phase shift is? Did it move left or right? It's all about that starting number, that starting bookend. Where does this bookend start?
0.
At 0. Did it move left or right?
Nope.
No. Write yourself a note, and I'm still working on trying to figure out how to write that note to myself. Cool? This starting at 0, that is my phase shift. That is telling me how much I move left or right. It's all about where it started, that first bookend. My starting bookend was at 0. That means my phase shift is 0 as well. To look at a graph and know what its phase shift is, you have to look at how much it moves left or right. Okay? Looking at where that starting bookend is.
What if it moves left exactly where my period? You can't tell.
Then it would give you the exact same equation, same graph, and both equations would be there. Cool. Which is part of the reason why I'm going to highlight and show you which part of the graph to give me. Hopefully make it easier. It's stressful. All right, do we have all the A, B, C's, and D's? Ready to write your equation? Yeah. I've already written all over my stuff here. So here's my equation. It's going to be y equals, what number is going in front? 2. The a value 2 goes in front. Before you rush on to the B's and C's, what word needs to go in there next? Sine. It's very easy. I've said it to a number of you guys. You're forgetting that word sine or cosine. Make sure you include that. All right. Who's going to go inside my parentheses? 2x. Good. So that b is 2. You definitely need your x, your variable. Was there a c value? No? Drop it. Is there a D value? Nope, drop it. Here's our equation. Does that make sense? Do you feel good? Yeah? Stop and think. Confirm. That guy didn't shift left or right at all. His bookends would be 0 to pi. Is that matching the graph 0 to pi? Yeah. Look at the graph and make sure it makes sense. All right. On to the back, if you're willing, please. New graph. This time we're going to do a cosine equation. Cosine equation. Again, there's lots of cosines you can see in this graph. I'm going to pick what I hope is the easiest one. Can we do this guy right here? Highlighter trace for me. Using a color is a great idea. Oh, sorry, Rhea, I forgot to stop here. This one's a little bit harder to see some of these things. Can you guys start with your partner? Start with your easy stuff. The reflection, the amplitude, the dividing line, the A's and the D's. Talk to your neighbors.
Because you know, if sine graphs start from the bottom, like rolling caps, and cosine graphs and stuff. Because if it wasn't, then it would have been you get that? Having really good conversations on this side of the room about that dividing line and the amplitude. This one I purposely picked. It's kind of hard to see, right? If your graph goes all the way up to 2 and all the way down to -4, your dividing line is not on the x-axis. It's in the middle of between -4 and 2, and you can actually count it. If you count to the middle, count to the middle, that -1 is going to be right in the middle. Do you see it? Yeah. I think if you take a second to draw it in, it's like, whoosh, light bulb. Now I see it. Now I clearly see that -1 is my dividing line. Yeah. It makes it much easier once you see the dividing line to figure out your amplitude. How far up and down from that dividing line are the top and bottom? How far up and down are we?
3. Good. Your amplitude is going to be a 3. Up and down 3. Good. Was there a reflection in this guy? Yes, good, because normally where does cosine start? Up in the top left corner, right? This guy's starting in the bottom left corner, so it did reflect. All right. You guys want to do the period next? The p-value next? Yeah? Look at your picture and write yourself good notes. Look at this picture, go from start to end, and show in your notes how you're figuring out that period. How far is it that we highlighted from the end minus the start?
5 minus 6.
Our bookends are stopping at pi and starting at 0. The period is pi. Do you feel comfortable looking at that graph and seeing that he has a period of pi? Starts and ends 0 to pi, yeah? Good. So, if the period is pi, now you have to find the b value. What's the formula you're going to use? 2 pi over b. And plug your period in on this side of the equation. What are we getting for our b value? B is going to be 2. B is going to be a 2. Cool. And cross multiply it out. Or, as we do more and more of these, have we had a period of pi before today in class?
Yep.
Last night in homework?
Yes.
Yeah? You've seen this before. Oh, the period's pi, you know these two. You're going to start recognizing it, right? Oh, B is 2, period 5. Pi is period 5, B is 2. Like, they go back and forth. Cool, you're get really used to it. Okay, so we know the B. What about the phase shift? Oh, everyone always struggles with this. How do I know where the phase shift is? All about where the graph starts. Okay, so where did we start this cosine graph? At 0. That starting bookend was at 0. That means the phase shift was 0. That is the phase shift right there. Cool. So there is no C value to worry about. Can you guys take a moment, if you haven't already, try to write out that equation. Give me a y equals in front if you want to be fancy. Nice. Don't forget that word cosine. Remember, it did reflect. Cool. Putting it all together, final answer should be y equals, what's first? -3. Don't forget the word cosine. Who's going to be inside my parentheses this time? 2x. Good. Don't forget your x. Don't forget your 2. No c. And at the end, minus 1. Okay, math? All right. One more to go here, and this one's the hardest one yet. In this guy, we're looking for a sine or a cosine? Sine. Oh, a sine. Those of you that worked ahead, stop and look. Did you realize I asked for a sine here and not a cosine? Guess that? Sine. Did you see a sine in there? The one I want you to look for is this one. If it's starting here at negative pi over 2, and I want to highlight to the end of it, where does it end? Does anybody see where it ends?
3 pi over 2.
3 pi over 2. Good. Please start with your partners finding your A and your D. Maybe D and then A, I should say it that way. D first. The dividing line should be right in the middle between the tops and the bottoms. What are we getting for our dividing line? What cuts right through the middle here? 0. Good. What about the A, the amplitude? 2. Up 2 and down 2. Did it reflect? Nope. Goes up first like normal. All right. The period is a little tougher on this one. How are we going to find the period? Is it just 3 pi over 2, like where it stops?
No.
It's not. You need to look and see how far is it from where it starts to where it ends. That's going to be a full period. So subtract those bookends for me. Okay. It's going to have to be double digits.
This is pi over 2 minus negative pi over 2. All of this plus, so it's not very interesting. You get 2 signs plus pi over 2. Yeah. Yeah, that's what I think. That one's we're gonna come to school and secrets today. We should let us watch it.
I'm not ready for that last one yet. So what are we getting for our period? How far apart are these bookends?
2 pi.
2 pi. So what I'm doing here is I'm taking 3 pi over 2 as my end, minus negative pi over 2, my start. Minus a negative, what happens with the double negatives? Comes a plus. Gives you 4 pi over 2. They already had a common denominator. Simplifies down to a period of 2 pi. Does that make sense? Yeah. So the period here is 2 pi. I want you guys to think. Instead of setting up an equation, I want you to think. The period is 2 pi. Period is 2 pi. What's the normal period for sine and cosine?
2 pi.
2 pi. So did the period change? No. What does that mean your b value is? 1. Not 0. 1. Cool. Your b value is a 1. Okay, the period did not change, so your b is 1. Does that make sense? If you're a formula person, let me write out the formula, because some of you are giving me some side eye. Like Miss Rose is, just give me a formula. I'm going to plug in the period on this side. That's my period is 2 pi. You with me so far? Cross multiply. I'm going to put this guy over 1. The b multiplies up. The 1 multiplies up. Good. Trying to get b by itself. What do I do next? Divide the 2 pi. Do it on both sides. B equals 1. Everything cancels over there. Just 1. Do you believe me now? The period's still 2 pi. It didn't change. The b value is just 1. Cool. And somebody asked, do we have to write the 1 in there? No. Which is x or 1x if you want to. It's fine. Cool. All right. Last part, phase shift. Excuse me. Thank you. Phase shift. How do we know what the phase shift is? By looking at the picture.
Starting.
Yeah, it's about how far that starting point is from 0, right? Where is that starting number, that starting bookend? Where is it? Negative pi over 2. There you go. There's my starting bookend. Is at negative pi over 2. That is your phase shift. That is the phase shift. That is what goes directly into your equation. You can write that as negative pi over 2. I would also encourage you to include a word on that. Is that left or right pi over 2? Left. You need that word left pi over 2 so that when you go to write the equation, what's going to be inside my equation? It'd be a plus pi over 2. Yes, left.
Can you write plus pi over 2 in the phase shift box because
It's up to you whether you put it as a plus or minus. I can hear it argued either way.
I just wrote left pi over 2. I didn't
Perfectly
do
fine.
neither.
That's perfectly fine. That's what I do. Cool. The word to me is more important than the positive or negative in your work. Cool. The left is going to be my cue to write it as a plus in my equation. Cool. All right, let's finish off this equation. What else do I need in here? 2. Sine, nice. Check your work. A couple of you forgot to write the sign again. Cool. The b is 1. You don't even need to write it. And your d is 0. Cool. Yay, math? Good job, guys. A lot of you have already started working on that bottom equation. Nice job. Pause. It is a little trickier. This last equation I want us to graph together is the most challenging technically we've done for a couple of reasons. One reason, stuff is mixed up. Things aren't in the right spots. And it also has a B and a C at the same time. This is the first one we've done that has a B and a C. You won't see a lot of them, but I wanted to give you one as an example. Okay? So, first off, that equation. Talk to your partner. Put that equation in the right format. Put it so A comes first, then B, then C, then D. Can you rewrite that equation for me? Things are all mixed up in that equation.
Talk to me, guys, about that 2 in front. Is that 2 in front the A? It's not. What is that 2? It's a D. So he needs to go at the end. Is he going to be a positive 2 or a negative 2 at the end?
Positive.
A positive. Be careful here. The negative here, this negative, is not going on the 2. It goes on the sign. Cool? Hold away. All right? That 2, and I'm not moving him to the other side. I'm not moving him to the other side of the equation. Just rearranging him a little bit, yeah? He's still a positive 2. He's a positive here. I'm just kicking him down to the end. Cool? Is that negative going to stay in front of the sign? Yes. What is that negative? An A. Good. So we've got that negative A in front of my sign. And then inside my parentheses, should pi come next?
No.
No. What should come next? The 2x. Very good. The 2 is your B. Put him next. And then, I'm out of colors, purple. The pi is like your C. Cool? Do we agree? Good question. No, it would still be a plus pi. Good question. So we're just rearranging where he is, not moving him to the other side of the equation. Yay, math? All right, start with your dab. Dividing line, amplitude, bookends. You guys got DNA on your own for sure. Go. Because he was positive here. Yeah, the minus goes with the sign. Cool. So here I'm just moving it around. I'm like, instead of 2 plus stuff, I'm saying stuff plus. Cool. I'm just rearranging where it is. Can you tell your T and your A for me? Where's your dividing line going to be? Where's your amplitude going to be?
So period should be 2. So period should be 5.
Cool. But your amplitude is 1. That's good.
And also the same 5. And then since the questions go down first, and the amplitude is 1.
So that's dividing line.
So look out.
Careful, it's not going to start at the old. Don't do your,
You gotta start flat.
wait for me.
Oh,
to
yeah,
do
yeah,
the
yeah. Got that.
Huh?
You gotta go
Just
left
do your
by the machine.
dividing line and your amplitude.
So you just go how much down? You go down like 2 squares. 2 squares or 2?
All right, so we should have dividing line should be at 2. Double check that. A lot of you missed it. A lot of you guys put a 0. The amplitude was 1 with a reflection. Up 1 and down 1 from that dividing line. That is also correct. That's with your B factored out. Good. Hang on 2 seconds. I'm going to show you a slightly different one. Cool. Okay. Cool. So, joining on this. Cool. Your dividing line, your amplitude, cool. So here's what you're going to do from here. The bookends are going to tell you where to start and end your graph. It's not as simple as looking at the equation and saying, oh, this plus pi, it must go left pi. Are you guys looking at that and thinking, oh, it's going to go left pi? That is not right. The reason it's not correct is because, I didn't even see it.
You gotta factor out B to C.
Just to factor out B to C or C. Right now, that 2 is distributed in, okay? So one way to do it is what Jacob's saying, we can factor out B to C or C.
Wait, how do you know if it's distributed in?
Because there's no other parentheses. If the 2 was out, it would have looked like this. It would have had an extra set of parentheses factoring that B out.
Yeah, but that would have been the same.
That would be that. Right?
Oh.
Cool. So because it didn't have the 2 outside of another set of parentheses, that's how you know the b isn't factored out.
Yeah, but what if it, how do you know, what if it's just the regular 2x plus pi? Can it be that?
If it's just 2x plus pi and there's no extra parentheses, like there's no 2 pulled out in front of the extra parentheses, then the b is multiplied. It's not factored out. Okay, so the way I do this, instead of doing the factoring out b work, because that can get a little messy when we have some fractions, what I do instead is rely on my bookends. And it's actually really easy, so join me, okay? Where do we set up the bookends? Between 0 and 2 pi. So start there, between 0 and 2 pi. Even if you think you've got this right, join me and do it anyways, just to make sure you're good. 0 and 2 pi. Another way to do it. What goes inside that inequality?
2x plus pi.
Beautiful. 2x plus pi. All of that goes inside the inequality. How many sides does that inequality have? 3 sides. Left, middle, right. Everyone agrees? Yeah. We are trying to solve for x. What things do we need to get rid of? We need to get rid of the pi, and we need to get rid of the 2. Do we agree? Which one do you get rid of first? The multiply guy or the adding and subtracting guy? The adding and subtracting guy. Think about if it was like a regular equation. 2x plus 8 equals 0. Would you move the 2 first?
No.
You would move the 8 first, right? It's the same thing. It just looks scarier because it's a pi, right? But you still got to move that adding or subtracting by first. So, how do I move that pi? Subtract it. How many times am I subtracting it? How many sides?
3 times.
3 times. Subtract it from all 3 sides. I'm already out of room. Make it work. See with me? Is this making sense? Think. Don't rush. What's 0 minus pi?
Negative pi.
Negative pi. Not still 0. Do we agree? When you subtract, it's negative pi. What's going to be left in the middle?
X.
2x still. And what's 2 pi minus 1 pi? Am I done?
No.
Is x by itself? No, these are not my bookends yet. They're changing, but they're not done yet. What am I going to do to get x by itself now? Divide the 2. So what are my bookends going to be? Pi over 2. Good. Negative pi over 2 to positive pi over 2. Those of you that worked ahead, did we get those right?
Yes.
Couple of us, yes? Great, great. Cool. Hopefully this shows you another way to do it, yeah? And you did the factor out b to c or c and went from there. All right, so let's draw this in our picture. Negative pi over 2. How many boxes to the left is negative pi over 2? Good, right here. Yeah, this is going to be where I start my sine graph. And I'm going to end my sine graph at positive pi over 2. Take a moment with your partner to find the 3 tick marks in the middle there. Good, finish up the details for me. Looking at the Jacob, can you make sure you got to the
Steady.
You're not.
Yeah.
You're not.
Probably the strongest fingers.
No, I think I did.
You must look like Jesus.
Hold it like this. That's gonna happen to every episode.
Alright, I'm gonna finish mine up here on the board. I was crappy, I got to like some of you for homework, and the other half I just failed you. So, come grab homework when you have a second. I'm gonna finish my graph up here. And we've got 5 minutes to start on it, so please don't quit, okay? Get started on that homework. I noticed walking around that a few people forgot the reflection. Maybe double check, make sure you got the reflection in there. It should go down first. I highlight this part, down first. Good question, no it does not.
Okay. Here's that.
You guys get the range was 1 to 3 with square brackets? Oh, I did the check marks in the wrong spot. Check marks. Transformation. Let's see. Oh. 2. Reflection X. Can we discuss these transformations? Because these are a bit of a doozy. Up to reflection over X. What was the phase shift?
Left pi.
Left pi over 2. Good. Not just pi, but pi over 2. That came from your starting bookend. And there was a B change. B was 2. Was that a horizontal stretch or horizontal compression? Compression. Horizontal compression. By how much? 1/2. Gorgeous. And then I've written over top of my period. What was the period of this graph? Pi. Yeah, the period is pi. From negative pi over 2 to positive pi over 2, subtract those bookends. It's a pi, or b. It's 2 pi over b. 2 pi over 2. Yay, math? Yeah? All right. I would love it if you would just take a few moments to start working on some homework. I am going to put the homework answers up on Schoology so that you can check them in advance. You could be working on your study guide and getting ready for that quiz next class. Retakes are due by the 21st. And just as a heads up, I'm having issues with my YouTube channel. For some reason, my playlist is not appearing
you can't see my playlist. So I've been posting them, the videos in each folder. So if you need to go back and watch 4.1, 4.2, 4.3, it'll be in those folders, 4.1, 4.2, 4.3. Cool? Sorry, that's the issue. If anyone's a YouTube genius and can help me figure out what I'm doing wrong, I'd love some help. Anyway, no? Fired. All of you, you're dead to me.